Hello and welcome everybody to Walkative Santiago. I'm very pleased to be able to introduce our host today, who is Tere Chad, who will be introducing our guests who are live in Santiago. Just before we get into that, I want to just mention that this is obviously part of our RCA 2020 events and is here also to complement the platform with all the projects from various programs. Tere is from the sculpture program, and our guests today are in fact guests of Tere from Santiago, but we also have Samuel Domínguez, who is also live from Santiago. He's one of our incoming sculpture students, so we're very excited to be meeting him and welcoming him to our program in September. Before I hand over to Tere, though, I just a couple more things about how it's going to work. Of course, we're in the spirit of Walkative, so we will hopefully be taking questions along the way. Me and Simon will be monitoring the chat, so by all means ask questions in the chat. Anyone can answer, but we'll be helping out with that. There will be time at the end for questions too. We've got quite a few guests today, so there's going to be some passing around. There's going to be some changeover of visuals, but I think we're going to get a number of perspectives on Santiago through different eyes and also live broadcasts. So thanks again for coming along, and hopefully we'll see you next Sunday as well for the following Walkative, which is Walkative San Francisco, and we will be there to meet you same time next Sunday. So Tere, over to you. Thank you.
Hello, well, thanks first for inviting us. So, well, I'm an artist finishing my master at the Royal College of Art and taking part of RCA 2020 platform. And today I'm honored of being invited by the Walkative Society, Jaspar and Simon, who organized this Walkative Santiago. So I will introduce the walk, speaking more about the like the geographical, the historical, and this like social aspect of Santiago. Then we have Alemparte, Barreda, Wedeles Besançon Architects, who will speak about modern Santiago. And to conclude, we will have Samuel Domínguez, that's a Chilean artist that will be coming next year to study here. So he will finish with a personal walk. Also, something important I wanted to highlight is that the walk, we designed it in a way that it is going to be embodied through different perspectives. And in part of my walk, I will include some kind of visuals that they embody a walk from our feet. In the case of Alemparte, Barreda, Wedeles Besançon Architects, they will have mainly a sky view. And to conclude, Samuel is going to show more like a street view. So to begin with, I want to share with you a project I did while I was studying my bachelor's degree in Santiago. So I documented the historical center of Santiago through my feet. So this is Plaza de Arma, or the main central plaza. So I did a hole in my sock and I tied up a camera, and I was walking through the city because I wanted to experience how would it be if we had our eyes in our feet. And after doing the exercise, you actually realize that it might sound redundant, but that our anatomy is quite logic, because it would be, we would go nuts walking if we see through our feet. It was not very practical. But also when you walk through your feet, you kind of like see things that you regularly don't know, and you start understanding maybe the different textures of the floor and how the movement, you kind of like are more conscious of the movement of your feet. So that's a man that's usually in the center of the city. He has a yo-yo playing and asking for money, and he's usually quite nice. And from François Fraisier that was done in 1712. This is one of the oldest, I guess, plans of Santiago. So you can see that the traditional Spanish Hispanic construction comes from like the Roman system. So there was a main plaza, that's the Plaza de Armas, and then they start building blocks. And there you can see the Mapocho River. Now I'll speak about like the social segregation. So Chile used to be a very poor country. Over the last 40 years, especially since, over the last 40 years, and especially since its return to democracy, the country has had a very important development, even though still it's a very unequal society with a very segregated neighborhoods. It is one of the less unequal countries in Latin America. And if you're interested in seeing the Chile of the 50s, I would strongly recommend to look for the pictures of Sergio Larraín, a Chilean photographer who took a wonderful collection of images from children who used to live under the Mapocho River in the 50s. So I could not share the images through here because the copyrights are owned by Magnum Photo. And you can also find Sergio Larraín's work in Tate Modern Museum because he was commissioned to take some images from London. So this video is a tour that's following the comedian Coco Legrand performance at Festival de Viña in 2010. Coco Legrand based his routine in insight and observation. And I really like his description of the social construction of Santiago, as I feel he synthesizes very well the contrast among the different neighborhoods. I tried to translate his Chilean Spanish, which is very difficult because to translate and even to understand for any Spanish speaker, because we use lots of slang. I kept the translation as accurate as possible, so I will apologize for his vocabulary. So Coco Legrand routine begins as follows. The rich run away and the poor follow. The other day, I was reading in an important newspaper an article by Paul Johnson. Paul Johnson is a great English historian and profound critic of the free market economy. He said that one of the characteristics of human beings when they achieve money and power is that their unique final goal is to distinguish themselves from all of the other assholes. To achieve that, they need to do a very simple exercise, to step aside from the other assholes. But the tragedy is that the asshole follows them because the rich provide added value. And if you pay attention to Paul Johnson's word and you pay attention to the ground geography of our beloved Greater Santiago, you will realize that this man has told us the whole truth. Go to Ejército Street, go to Brazil Street. They are the great mansions of the rich from the old days. They're not there anymore. But the houses are still there, now converted into institutes, discotheques, pharmacies, maybe a brothel or two. The mansions are still there. But if you do an exercise and walk 2 blocks to the right, 2 blocks to the left, 2 blocks to the north, or 2 blocks to the south, you will start to see how these mansions slowly disappeared and it started to be full of these shitty little houses, tiny flats. And who lives there? The assholes who started colonizing the rich, while the rich decided to escape more than 30 kilometers away to Ñuñoa. It was full of brambles. There was nothing there because they had money. They built for themselves a wider avenue than Alameda, Avenida Macul, José Pedro Alessandri. And there they constructed their mansions again. The rich are no longer there, but you can find the mansions. The mansions are now institutes, discotheques, pharmacies, restaurants, but the owners are not there. Do the same exercise as before. Take the time to walk 2 blocks to the right, 2 blocks to the left, 2 blocks to the north, 2 blocks to the south, and you will see that exactly the same thing happens again. The mansions start to disappear and you start seeing shitty small attached houses, housing development, and who lives there? The asshole again, who were colonizing the rich, and the rich decided to escape again to Providencia, And from Providencia, they escaped to Apoquindo, Las Condes, and from Las Condes to La Dehesa. And all the asshole kept on chasing them from behind, the pharmacies with the pills, the priests with the churches, the malls and the shops, the hardware stores with the screws. And as the assholes arrived again, the rich decided to go to Huechuraba. When the rich discovered that Huechuraba was in Conchalí, the place where the Chilean singer Salo Reyes comes from, the rich sold the houses to escape to Colina. They keep on escaping. What are they escaping from? Maybe they escape from their own past. Perhaps, damn it, how everything has changed. So this is a kind of social criticism, I guess, of the construction of Santiago. And something that you might not know is that in Santiago, there's a law called Cota Mil. In English, it would be translated something to the 1,000 meters above the sea level limit. So people are only allowed to construct under 1,000 meters high. So now they have reached the limit because so the wealthy people started in the center, and as the upper middle class started arriving, they started moving up and up and up. So now they cannot keep on constructing higher. So in some sense, this has encouraged or embraced the trend the last 10 years, I would say, that there has been a different mind in terms of restoring old neighborhoods. That's what's been quite nice. So here we're visiting near El Salto. That's a more humble place. And you can appreciate the contrast between some of the other neighborhoods I've been presenting. So you see that, for example, the lots of houses that are made with a kind of like pre-made material, and sometimes they get flooded in winter, or they don't resist very well the earthquakes. So now I will finish my part of the presentation showing 3 different places I would particularly like to highlight because I have a connection with them. I have worked in those places. So the first one is Museo de Artes Decorativas, or Museum of Decorative Arts, where I presented my jewelry collection, Fusión Jacapiri, inspired in Easter Island in 2016. The museum is located in the Centro Patrimonial Recoleta Dominicana, a Dominican monastery. That was constructed between 1853 and 1882. It is a rare building as it is one of the few 2-floor adobe constructions that has resisted the earthquakes. Inside has a beautiful patio that you can see with this beautiful garden. So the Dominican monks used to confiscate witchcraft books and put them in their own library to read. So if you're ever in Santiago and you're interested in witchcraft books, I think you should go to this library. And so here you can see an image of my exhibition. So I had the jewelry inside, but I also had some images of Easter Island and some poetry I wrote. And then this is the second place I wanted to show because I did a research project about it while I was studying my bachelor degree in Santiago. This is the Animita of Romualdito. You must be wondering what is an Animita. So Animitas are small shrines for mythological and religious worship. These Animitas shrines are places in public spaces where tragedies have occurred, assassinations or traffic accidents. And it is very common to see them along Chilean roads. In Latin America, there is often a cultural syncretism where you find cultural beliefs that mix Christian beliefs with animistic and polytheist beliefs of the Aboriginal people. Well, this is my favorite Animita, the Animita of Romualdito in San Borja Street, close to the Central Station. So there are many legends about the origins of this Animita, and that is there since 1933. a police research determined that Romualdo Iván Isambelli was a Chilean mechanic with Italian origins who was assaulted and assassinated in this spot in 1933. Now he has many followers who ask for Romualdo's intercession for miracles. Each plaque placed on the wall represents a miracle Romualdo has granted. So apparently he's very successful in granting miracles. And so the last place I would like to show is in the neighborhood República. So República and 18 are two neighborhoods named in commemoration of Chile's independence from Spain. Chile's independence is celebrated the 18th of September of 810. That's actually the date where the first national government junta was proclaimed and the process of the autonomy and liberation from Spanish dominion began. So 18 in Spain means, 18 in Spanish means 18. So the name to this neighborhood is a reference to that day. And República means republic. So República is a neighborhood established between the mid-19th century and the early 20th century, when the wealthy people constructed villas and mostly neoclassical style, close to the race course. Most of these mansions have been transformed nowadays into colleges and universities, so it's known as a university neighborhood. I want to show this particular house that's in República 550, a villa designed in Tudor style by a Chilean architect, Josué Smith Solar, for his family. This house later belonged to Universidad de Chile, and during the dictatorship between 1973 and 1989, this house was used as a torture center. Afterwards, the house was occupied by artists and had a kind of cultural center. Now the house is being restored. I was invited for a launch of a project to create an installation, which you can see in this video. My installation, Human Duality, was inspired by Arturo Fontaine's book, The Double Life. In his book, the novel based on real facts, he tells the story of a communist woman organizing terrorist attacks during the dictatorship, who is caught by the military. While she's being tortured, she develops a Stockholm syndrome and falls in love with her torturer. Under torture, she gives so much information about the Communist Party that she starts receiving death threats from the Communist Party. When she's released, she finds herself forced to collaborate with the military, and as it was the only way she was going to be protected. My installation is a textile labyrinth with stencils of animated hands that go from expressing love to hatred. I use stencil as this room used to be a graffiti workshop for the occupiers. I also added mosaics of broken mirrors as I wanted to liberate the negative energy from the from the space by breaking mirrors. While I was working there, I did not see any living creature inside, and they don't use any kind of pesticides. The housekeeper told me that there are spirits at night, and they feel people running through the stairs, and even a wooden door exploded. While I was working there, it was quite awkward and creepy, as one of the neighbors asked me, if even from the window when he saw me, if I was real or a ghost. The private view was going to be this last March, but the exhibition was canceled because with COVID-19 and the social upheaval since October from last year, they both have brought other economical priorities to invest in. So now I hope you enjoy this more like historical set of Santiago, and I will pass the presentation to Alemparte, Barreda, Wedeles Besançon Architects, who will speak about modern Santiago.
Yeah, thank you, Tere. Good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to thank Tere, Jaspar, the Royal College of Art in London, Simon, and the Walkative Society to invite us for this presentation. This new Walkative session in Santiago de Chile. First of all, I will introduce our architecture office, Alemparte, Barreda, Wedeles Besançon Architects and Associates, known as ABWB. A bit of the story: our office was founded in 1953 by Sergio Alemparte and Ernesto Barreda, very good friends and students of the architecture in the Catholic University of Santiago. Ernesto passed away 6 years ago, and Sergio is still part of our board, participating regularly in meetings with us. Later in the story, Manuel Wedeles and Wedeles Besançon joined the office as partners. More recently, Manuel Wedeles Jr. and I, Amalia Barreda, joined them. For almost 70 years, we have been developing different sort of projects, especially in Santiago, also in Chile and abroad. Mixed use, healthcare, hospitality, housing, interior design are part of the more than 2 million square meters that we have built. Therefore, in a certain way, we have been witness and protagonist of the architectonic history of Santiago. Today, we're going to share with you a bit of our vision and guide you in this walk into the modern city of Santiago. A special mention deserves our partner, Ernesto Barreda, by the way, my father, as an architect, but also an important artist of the 20th century in Chile. His duality artist-architect enriched our work. He always avant-garde and creative gaze, in addition with his unique personality and sense of humor, left a special imprint in our office. Ernesto, called Tito, was born in Paris in 1927. He studied architecture in the Catholic University in Santiago, and after that, he spent a year in the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. He dedicated from a very young age to painting and drawing. His father was also an artist, so he was involved in this atmosphere, artistic atmosphere. Oil wash, watercolor, dry pastel are some of the different techniques that he used throughout his life. He also explored bronze sculpture when he was around 65 years old, very late in his career. The themes and inspiration of his paintings were very different during his artistic career. In fact, we can see that they were strongly related to his stage of life. Architecture had a fundamental influence in his artistic expression and vice versa, though we can find in his work the presence of buildings, perspectives, and different elements that helped him to build his own world and magical reality. As an architect, he brought to life many buildings and projects that took shape in Chile and abroad. To end, Tito was we can say, a Renaissance man. He was educated, restless, passionate about life and what he was doing. He left a very significant imprint in our office with his amazing personality and his particular way to approach projects. So now we're going to begin the tour in Santiago with Manuel.
Thanks, Amalia. Thanks, Tere, and thanks everyone for making this possible, this invitation. We will go today through a different walk around Santiago, some areas of Santiago, as we're not able to walk freely in this quarantine city. This walk we're going to go through is possible with satellite technology. So thanks Google Earth, Google Street View, and maybe at some point Google Drone View. We still don't know where this is going, but also possible because of architecture and public space, public walkable space on top of buildings. ABWB has been allowed in these more than 60 years of profession, has been allowed to shape parts of the city blocks, and we will go through a few of the buildings that make this form. The area we're visiting today is surrounded by mountains, nearby steep hills that form the main public park of the city, and a river that forms a crack or a linear void that crosses the city from east to west. We will frame two neighborhoods that encompass the higher growth of real estate business in Santiago, urban density and its relation with urbanism and the use of public space. We will focus more on urbanism and public space. Starting from Sky Costanera, the citizens and visitors can experience the city as a landscape from its 300 meters height, realize the geographical magnitude and visualize the different neighborhoods in their geographic location and dimension from a central point of the city. Density, green areas, high or low-rise constructions, an opener horizon view, the city in operation seen as a smaller scale from an ample point of view, from a path that allows us to have a 360 degrees view, transform the view into an urban particular experience, this aerial walk through a city. So then we can see practically everything from above. We start with the El Golf neighborhood. Barrio El Golf was a residential area of big houses with a sports and social club on its side, trying to be a garden city using the concepts of Ebenezer Howard, but became a central spot in the city. Houses were demolished to give space for denser residential constructions, taller buildings, and different uses that transformed the area into a district that mingles different programs. The neighborhood nowadays combines residential, commercial, shopping stores, office, hotel buildings, and a whole mix. As architects, we have been part of the transformation in designing and developing projects. We will see now in this neighborhood the Intercontinental Garden Tower Hotel, which is a singular building covered with a 2,500 square meters vertical garden wall facade, protecting the building from the northwest sun, achieving better thermic behavior for its interiors, and a sustainable answer to the environment. This project has been published by the Council of Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, like one of the 30 green walls on high-rise buildings. The building uses all of its property line, connecting itself with pre-existing construction and facing directly with the sidewalk. Then we see Atlantis building. This is an office building named Atlantis because of its plan shaped like a space shuttle. Has a green colored curtain wall facade and a faceted perimeter with a free expression and reflexes. Our partner Ernesto Barreda drew a perspective in craft paper and pastel pencils of this building. This construction faces the street as a single element that retracts the lower floors, enlarging public space into the private area. Then we can see this Isidora 3000, which is not an ABWB design project, but a project that contains mixed use, residential, office, hotel, shopping store, restaurant, all in one building, making public space go inside of it, surrounding the sidewalk with excavated voids that are open for public space as well. The building also has a public space on its top. Then we go through Financo Tower, which is an office building that has an oxidated copper roof with a green colored appearance. It's a green grayish appearance over a corner site facing Avenida Apoquindo, an important avenue of the city that has one of the best consolidated street profiles of the city, delivering quality public space and making the avenue desirable for and comfortable place to be. These twin security towers we're seeing now form the portico of Apoquindo Avenue, looking toward the Andes Mountains. The special coating of this building gives them passive thermic isolation to control their interior temperature. They also use natural ventilation systems during the night to refresh the interiors. They face the street in a different ways. One of them forms open space into a ground floor using the property line as a limit, while the other liberates space retracting from the line. Continuing through Avenida Apoquindo, we go through the municipal town hall, which is the lower one we're seeing now. It's a municipal town hall and theater facing the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, designed with special issues from the hotel chain for having a traditional image. That's the Ritz-Carlton image that has all over the world. Brick facade with individual and not so large windows produced a non-temporal building. On its top, it has a tempered swimming pool that is topped with an arched skylight. The interior design of the Ritz was completely renewed by our interior design area recently. The hotel gives a rich relationship for its guests with the city, facing directly to the town hall that can be accessed as a public space building, and Avenida Apoquindo with a correct transport connection with the rest of the city. On its other side, we see an office building with its structure as a facade. We recently went through that. The Henry Foster building, designed for a financial corporation as an office tower, it has been recovered with a bronze aluminum curtain wall with a circular heliport on its top. The Barrio El Golf is a neighborhood fed by its own mix of uses. So it's a live neighborhood. It's alive. We finished this walk through this barrio or neighborhood at Escuela Militar intersection, an intermodal transport place that becomes an essential connection point in the city. Highways, subway station, bus station, and pedestrians complete the area with constant movement. And then from here we move to Nueva Las Condes, which is probably our newest part of the city, with an urban design that grew almost without pre-existing conditions. Urban developers made a master plan for this area, which used to have residential buildings in a social area that brought poorer people to a better neighborhood, but this didn't work. And before this urban development, we'll go a little bit further before, our studio designed the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, which we will start seeing now. We'll wait a little bit for this video to start. think this was the heavier one, Tere. So we might wait a little bit longer. There we go. This is the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, born like
sorry,
a
Manuel, is it playing in your screen?
Sorry?
Is the video playing?
I don't see.
Playing?
Not, no.
Hold on.
It's moving though, but it's kind of cut down.
Oh, okay, let me try again.
Mm-hmm. If not, we can still go on with it.
Can you see it now?
Yes, yes, now it's moving.
Okay.
Yes, that's the hotel born like a Grand Hyatt hotel this is 1991. Was designed like a Hyatt building that has to be as that all over the world, with high-rise open lobby, 100 meters tall, ending at its top with a skylight that gives the city a big nocturnal lantern, with 300 guest rooms and a complete convention center, restaurant, surrounding space, central space, and rooms that have the mountain view. Facade is composed with special stucco representing a stony facade. Then we went through another building that was a stainless steel covered building. And then we moved to these glass buildings. These glass buildings from floor to top in the Nueva Las Condes neighborhood, containing intermediate space between interior and exterior. At the ground floor, connecting public space with private interior. So it mixes everything here. All the areas that are not an interior becomes public, walkable and usable space. Between buildings, you can go around, and there is restaurants around there. So there is movement all around. The buildings as a group form a common ground as a result made by individual tall office towers, with commercial areas on the ground floor taking the intermediate space. This urban solution works well, though as it is separated from other uses, it becomes a lonely place on Sunday. Our quarantine condition nowadays makes the city feel as every day is Sunday. Personally, I prefer areas where pedestrians are using public space constantly, and that is supported by mixed-use buildings.
I don't know if you can see the question from Jaspar. He would like you to say more about the relation between the private and public space in the buildings. Mm-hmm. This seems to work differently to other cities.
Yes, yes. Well, we are a private country. I mean, can you stop the video and go back a little, just to see the area from above? I think that could be fine. So this private area, which had an owner and started selling parts of its domain, had a different treatment than the rest of our city, and they made an urban development that was thought to be a public area where you can move all around, and that's where the intermediate space between private area and public area is very important, because intermediate space doesn't become a limit. It's just a next between them. So you can move all around this neighborhood. You can can participate with architecture, and you can see people using public space more frequently than in other places of the city, because it is thought to be like that. So
yeah.
So Simon, it's a bit similar to the development of King Cross in London, so that
Right.
it's like it's open space, but it's private.
Okay. I'm conscious of time, but I think if I can just ask if you've seen Roberta's question about how Santiago, like other city, is a changing one, it's evolving. And she would like for you to say a bit more about how the people of the city are involved in the changes. Are they consulted? And not only react to them and express themselves as best they can. I'm just reading her question.
yes,
I don't know if you want to say a little bit about that, but I'm conscious of time because Samuel is also coming up.
Well, I could say yes. We are under a living city. We are under a changing and transforming city. We've been witnesses of this, and in the neighborhood we saw before, the Barrio El Golf. When I was a kid, there was houses there, and now there is tall buildings. Now in this area, when I was a kid, there was blank space, and now there is glass tall buildings. So we're witnessing how the city moves, how the city changes and evolve. And then,
do I go to the next slide?
Yes, yes,
okay.
yes.
So
this area has practically everything: commercial, office, shopping, park. But the area, but they are set with urban limits. The distances became longer at that area, and pedestrians don't have the time today to experience it as a whole. That's, different uses are near, but they are separated. So it's a different way. It's a different barrio than the one we were seeing before. Parque Araucano with its big, this is the last part of the video we were seeing. The Parque Araucano with its big lawn and surrounding forest holds many different leisure activities, and also the Young Architects program, Constructor, which is a program associated with the New York MoMA, the Rome Maxi, the Istanbul Modern, and the MMCA from Korea. And it is an active support in generating opportunities for young talented architects that concludes in a yearly architectural intervention, and its objective is to explore and improve the quality of public space. It's sort of like our dimensioning the difference, but it's like our serpentine gallery. Then we go through the San Cristobal Hill and the Baha'i Temple, which are two important public spaces for the city. The San Cristobal Hill, which is a geographical milestone, accessible directly from 4 districts of the city. This is our main public natural space where people go for open air activities in connection with nature, overlooking the moving city. Among its many constructions, we highlight 3 works that have in common their public nature, their integration with the place, and the use of stone as the predominant material. It's 2 swimming pools called Tupahue and Antilane, designed by Carlos Martner, and the Plaza Mirador Pablo Neruda. Then we can see one of the swimming pools. That's not its best time of the year, but you can go and swim on the top of the hill. And the Mirador Pablo Neruda, which is an amphitheater, and all of them 3 are the highest areas of the hill. And then we will move to the Baha'i Temple, which is a meeting point. It's an interesting meeting point on the side of the mountains that watches the city from another perspective. It promotes unity through free participation and prayer without rituals, ceremonies, or sermons. It is a religious place, but it's a different religious place. It's a place for silence and reflect. In order to reach the temple, it is necessary that we walk through a long path. The building itself has 9 sides formed by translucent materials that bring light inside. Then we can see how landscape moves around the building. Then we will go to some particular areas in Vitacura. We'll go through the Tanica building, which is an office building whose master plan was designed by Mecanu, a Netherlands architecture firm, and the project was developed and designed by Más Arquitectos in Chile. Here we go to this Tanica building.
Are you seeing the projection?
Yes, I see it. This special building was designed to implement an energy efficiency system aimed to reduce the demand, improve the quality of workspaces, and adopt an environmental friendly posture. Constructed in a neighborhood that it adapts to its neighborhood with green areas on its borders, maintaining distance in order to not obstruct or affect the area, but opening green areas to the neighbors. Because it's a strange office building in a residential area where there were no offices there. But it doesn't obstruct. It uses a careful treatment of the facades, privileging natural light and views and avoiding gain or loss of thermal energy. It's a very good example of how architecture can achieve green goals. From here, we'll go to the Mestizo restaurant, building designed by Smiljan Radic. It's a building situated on one of the borders of the Bicentenario Park. The designer of this Smiljan Radic participated in the design of a Serpentine Pavilion of 2014. The restaurant is situated in front of water gardens and a pedestrian walkthrough. It observes.
Forgive the interruption, but we need to be aware of time. I'm conscious of Samuel coming up.
I'm finishing my part and then we'll go Eve. And then we see this park, the park, which is a large longitudinal area separated from the San Cristobal Hill by the river on one side and the residential area on its other side. It holds diverse paths and areas for leisure activity since its construction citizens from different parts of Santiago use it. And it became quickly a favorite place for activities and events. Citizens from denser areas of Santiago come to this calm and walkable park. With this, we will go now through Costanera Center with Eve.
So Simon, Eve's is like 5 minutes and then Samuel 10, so that you don't worry so much about time. So
I'm going to start. Thank you very much, Tere and Jaspar, for this invitation to show our city of Santiago in the Walkative. We began the Costanera Center project in 1989, 30 years ago, when Horst Paulmann, the owner of the land, collapsed to develop a shopping center mall with office towers and hotels in the site with 50,000 square meters area he bought 2 years before. We worked in the project until 1993, obtaining the permission from the municipality authorities. After that, the owner kept the project in standby for 6 years. In 1999, we were invited again by Mr. Polman to continue developing the project. Some new conditions in the National Construction Code were a great opportunity to make important changes to design a tall skyscraper, the tallest in Latin America, with 300 meters high, 985 feet. It was a big challenge for us to have in our hands the responsibility to design a singular skyscraper for Santiago, an iconic building and a symbol of the progress and economic success of our country. Our client asked us to have a partner, a recognized architect with large experience in skyscrapers. Cesar Pelli, a star architect, was selected to design the conceptual architecture of the tower. With 710,000 square meters for the whole project, we started working with Pelli's office, doing several trips between Santiago and New Haven. Cesar Pelli generously shared with us his large experience in well-known buildings all over the world, like Petronas Twin Towers, IFC in Hong Kong, Iberdrola Tower in Bilbao, and Salesforce Towers in San Francisco, between others. Several of my students when I was dean in UNAC University in Santiago, were selected by Cesar Pelli to do a 2 years internship in Pelli's office. Even our partner Manuel Wedeles Jr. went and stayed doing an internship too with Cesar Pelli teams in New Haven 10 years ago. Talking with him, with Cesar, I asked how he defined the Costanera Center, and he said, "This tower grows around the axis mundi, going from the bottom of the earth to the infinite space. Our Torre Costanera Center became the image of Santiago and Chile's modernity." The tower, designed like a symmetric plant with a facade and octagonal corners, goes up, decreasing with its perimeter, looking like an obelisk in the middle of the city. The contrast between the horizontality of the snowy Andes Mountains and the verticality of the brilliant tower reflecting the daylight from its crystal curtain wall are in perfect harmony, like a symphony orchestra. Last November 2019, for the meeting of the Council of Tall Building in Urban Habitat CTBUH in Chicago, Torre Costanera was selected by the council between the 50 most influential tall buildings of the last 50 years, and we went to receive the nomination with Cesar Pelli's team. The tower is also accredited in LEED Gold category. In 2012, we invited Cesar Pelli to visit Santiago. He gave 2 successfully and crowded lectures for architects and for students. I took a walk with him along the Bicentennial Park, ending in front of the tower. Cesar Pelli, looking the building from the distance, commented, "It looks well. I like its arrival on the ground." We will never forget this big architect who led in Santiago, and in our hearts, his knowledge and his charm personality. Thank you very much.
So now we will conclude with Samuel's presentation. So I'm just sharing it, Samuel. Can you see it, Samuel?
Yes, I can. Thanks.
Cool. I'll put it, there it is.
Okay, first of all, thank you all for having me. And well, because of time, I will be as brief as possible, just around 10 minutes or so. I will be taking more personal.
Samuel, don't worry too much about time. We can be kind of flexible. a little bit flexible, so don't rush.
Okay. I will be taking a more personal approach to the city and the way I usually tend to interact with it. And well, of course, that will have to do with my personal routine and the way I relate to urbanism in my own neighborhood. So you will just be seeing my daily life experience in Santiago. So for that, we are going to use maps and the Google Street View technology. In that sense, I just wanted to mention Hito Steyer's idea of bubble vision, as you can see in the image, to refer to this 360-degree technology and virtual reality, where we as observers are kind of at the center of the spheres, but yet at the same time we are invisible. So we have no body, we have no extension inside that digital bubble. So we are going to be that invisible observer in this journey. We will start from what used to be my studio in the last 2 years or so, following a straight line headed towards the house where I grew up, and actually where I have been during the lockdown these past months. We are going to start from my studio because I just left it, so it's kind of a way of putting it behind. We will be walking through a residential area in Providencia, mainly Pocuro Avenue. So first of all, this is a 3D view of the area where the studio is located. And if you take a look from above, you know, as a map, you will notice the block, I don't know if you're seeing, yeah, the block resembles kind of a pizza slice. And actually there are a bunch of pizza restaurants in that block. But anyway, we studio mates always define the block as a pizza slice, so it's kind of funny. If we start walking into this bubble vision, this is how the area looks like. Okay, so walking on a straight line, we will see the area is actually almost entirely residential, having a mix of, you know, both old houses, many German style, and other new residential buildings. You can see at the left, then at the right, you will see another German style house. Also just wanted to mention that walking on a straight line is a very simple way of kind of experiencing a city, both from a sculpture point of view, as a way of, you know, understanding that a line is also a spatial dimension. And it's also a kind of a playful way of walking a city. We are also going to start seeing a lot of construction sites. As you said, the city is kind of changing a lot and evolving. The old houses are actually, a lot of have been being demolished and new buildings are being made. For example, that one on the corner now is a big residential building. Okay, so this is Manuel Montt Avenue. You can, if we zoom in, you will discover, you know, the old memory of the cobblestones that made up the street. Also on the left, you had that gas station. Let's continue our straight line. Okay, so just the next street, let me see. Yeah, there you go. Just in that street is where the bike path starts. You can see it goes on both axes. So if you can change slide, please. Yeah, so here the contribution in terms of, you know, urbanism and the whole pedestrian point of view was key to design this like long park, but also very narrow because of the lack of space. And much of the neighborhood was designed by architect Germán Bannen. Actually, the first image you're seeing is one of his drawings of the planning. And the second image is during the construction of the bike path, I think maybe 20 or 30 years ago, not sure. So let's continue with our journey. Straight line. There you go. So now we will always be having on our left hand this bike path, just for you to keep an eye on it. We will also start seeing bigger trees that have been there for a really long time. And just on your right, you will see the first park in this journey. Yeah, there you go. I usually tend to stop there many times to, you know, just chill up for a bit. And okay, so the next corner here, you will see another construction site. Nowadays, this is also a big residential building, maybe 10 stories or so. It's not big in terms of, you know, how tall it is, but it occupies a lot of area. So it has like a lot of presence. Maybe we can see something in, no, we can't. Yeah, that's kind of the construction side. Okay, let's continue. Okay, now, so here, on your left hand, now, you'll start seeing a Mormon church. It's actually interesting because of, you know, the garden is always perfect. It has colorful flowers. And on your right hand, you'll see the university where I studied my undergrad. So as you may already be inferring, this is kind of where I spent, you know, most of the last years of my life or so, like in daily life. And the street, yeah, this is like the back entrance for the parking lot. On this street you are seeing now is Pedro de Valdivia Avenue. And if you watch closely, you can also see the old cobblestones that covered the street. And if you look this way, you will see, no, the other way. This way, yeah. You will see Germán Banen's famous bridge that connects two small parks. And if you use the 3D Google technology, the algorithm generates this kind of weird mass, which I find just interesting because it's a way of understanding how technology interprets 3D objects. Okay, so let's just continue our way. Here you will see the bike path, of course. Also, you will see small trees that had been recently planted. And from here, Pocuro Avenue becomes even more residential. And that's kind of great because you have this small neighborhood, grocery stores. Also, you have some small cafes, which I believe brings a lot of life to the area in general. You also have old houses, but kind of mixed with new buildings. So this next street here is Ricardo Lyon Avenue. You can see here trees are really big, adding a lot of green to the city. That's kind of great, I guess. Also, usually from here you can almost always see the mountains, and it's kind of beautiful during winter because of course, the snow in the mountains. So there you go. You can see the area around. You always having on your left the bike path, as I was saying. And so this next street is Los Leones, I guess. Yeah. So here you will see another construction site, nowadays just in the corner. Nowadays this is part offices, part residential building. And this is Los Leones Avenue. That's actually a pretty busy street, as you have public transportation, as you might see. So we are almost there, just a few more blocks until we get home. Okay, so you from here on you will start seeing the mountains. I don't know if you can see it with this street view, but I guess I put an image in it just a minute later. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. You'll see that the mountain looks actually beautiful, especially these times for winter. So this small street is where my family house is located, right here. It's where I'm right now, like because of lockdown. I've been here like 4 months or so. So I just wanted to end our walk here and just hope you enjoyed and you could get kind of an insight of the neighborhood where I grew up. So thanks for listening.
Samuel, thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Tere, Manuel, Eve, and ABWB Architects. Jaspar, how long have we got for Q&A?
Well, I think we'll give it, well, we're obviously officially out of time, but there's no reason why we shouldn't carry on for another 10 minutes or something. I think, I know there are questions, and it would be useful to just kind of wrap up a little bit with some comments.
Okay, well,
Shall we just unshare screen, Tere, so we can see everyone?
Done.
Well, can I start with an appreciation from Carola, who is actually one of my summer students at the RCA, but she's also a resident of Santiago. And if I can find her message.
I'm reading it here. It says...
you can see it, if you'd like to read it.
Yes, thanks for the walk, all the images and the information through my country and my city in almost 3 months of lockdown. Sorry, almost 4 months.
Excellent, thank you. Actually, I asked a question early on, and with regard to the Mapuches, I think that's an incorrect spelling, and the Incas. Are there many statues of conquistadors in Santiago and elsewhere in Chile? In relation to the, what's happening in the world at the moment, has there been any toppling of these?
Yes, absolutely. We recently had in October last year, we had a social explosion here in Santiago, and people has been trying to turn down statues, and there is conqueror statues, but there is also Mapuche statues. So we have kind of both sides, but this social movement that it's not going through only here in Chile, we can see it everywhere in the world, is moved mainly in big cities, where you can see many people living enclosed with another. You don't see rural people being so sad as you can see urban people being very sad.
Thank you. Jaspar, you've got a question, I think.
Well, thanks, Simon. I've got a few questions, actually. First of all, I think just thank you to everyone. It was really interesting. One thing that was particularly striking about the presentations was getting a very different perspective of the city from each of you. It felt like there's sort of multi-dimensional view of the city in a way that is probably almost impossible to imagine without experiencing that, right from the aerial to street view, and then from the city out to the suburbs. It was quite something. I think I did ask a question about the private and the public, and I think I probably just want to start with asking, because Samuel was last, just to kind of ask quickly about the relationship that this journey you have, that you kind of relived between the studio and the living space. What role does this journey, this walk, or this movement from one space to another have in relation to the kind of development of your work? I was reminded of a tutor that I had at Goldsmiths. I think it was Gerard Hemsworth, who always used to say, "Remember to smell the roses on the way to the studio," which was kind of a nice way of just kind of taking in things and being open to the idea that these kind of encounters are your kind of material to a certain extent.
Yeah, for me, walking is really important because actually many of the ideas I have tend to nurture from what I see, and actually tend to be born in that daily routine of walking. So that's why you know, I could actually take public transportation and it will take like, I don't know, 5 minutes, but I usually prefer to walk, because while you walk, you don't only experience your kind of your environment, but also is a way of thinking. It's a way of being connected with reality, but also disconnected, like at the same time, because you are, you know, kind of inside your own head, thinking about what you are going to do next. And it's interesting because it's a kind of blend between your inner thoughts, but also being influenced by what you see in and are experiencing, like just in that moment. So I really enjoy that daily life routine.
I was interested because there was a kind of contrast in a sense, and I was struck by the images of from the top of the tower that you, Manuel, was showing, and it reminded me of the De Soto's book, where he talks from the top of the World Trade Center, and he talks about this idea of the bird's eye view, or, you know, the kind of God's eye view from high above. And it's such a, and that was one of the things that really came across, as these very different perspectives, and in particular the contrast between the street view and this kind of God's eye view of the city, which is clearly kind of looking down from above. What you talked about the building, but what kind of social impact do you think that building has? I mean, it is an incredible statement when you look at the skyline. Is there was there any kind of resistance to this kind of huge kind of statement suddenly in the city? What are the various kind of interpretations or assessments of the building from various perspectives?
Would you have your mic out? If
sorry, Jaspar, you are talking about Costanera, yes?
Yeah, I'm talking
Yes.
about this, you know, because in a sense, I mean, it was really interesting to hear you talk about the idea of the kind of low-rise buildings, and it not necessarily high-rise not being a feature of the city. So to have this tower that is such an architectural statement must have come with some controversy in many ways, because it does mark the city, and is kind of interesting. I mean, it's not a criticism, it's just it must have had a huge kind of impact in terms of...
Yes, it has a huge impact in the city, and we had a big resistance from many people to the project. That's true. But now, with the building finished and opened to the people, this big complex receive 9 million people per trimester. Each 3 months, you have 9 million people going in, well, before the lockdown, obviously. But it's a building that began the image of Santiago. He is in the postal of the postcards of all the you find everywhere, and he is hated and loved. You know, every big building have always some resistance because everybody wants the not so tall buildings and that not cause a big impact in the city. But this building is a very concentrated complex and mixed complex that is visited by pedestrians, principally people that goes in public transportation, not in cars, and it's a building who has everything for everybody. It's a very visited building in Santiago.
I think that's. Oh, sorry, carry on.
Adding on that, it is very interesting what Yves was saying, that mostly pedestrians go to this building and not cars, and it was designed to receive 3,000 cars, but in
5,000.
5,000 cars.
5,000.
And then they realized that people goes walking, uses public transportation to go to it, and now they're wondering what to do with all these parking spots they have in there that are not necessary. So it is interesting how an enclosed private building can become public space, and that is made by pedestrians.
That was also another striking thing about the presentations, was from my perspective of seeing this thing through Google Earth, and also from the street view and also from above, there was a sense in which the city was really mindful of pedestrians. And there seemed to be a lot of kind of open spaces and the kind of idea of a city plan for walking. But at the same time, I wasn't certain whether that was to do with a kind of idealization of planning, or whether that actually happens in reality. Do you know what I mean? So some of those spaces that looked kind of pedestrian friendly and kind of green also seemed at times a little bit sort of sanitized, as if they had just come off the drawing board. Would you say that Santiago is a kind of pedestrian friendly city in general?
I think principally that we are in debt with the pedestrian and friendly public spaces to people in Santiago. Santiago architects were responsible of the big segregation we have. It's a city not planified. We don't have planification, and now it's a very segregated and not integrated city. That's what we are going to work now, because one of the causes of the explosion, social explosion of last October, was this big segregation in Santiago.
You're talking about there might be, sorry, it's just that not everyone might be familiar with what was happening then. There were many protests against the general political system that involved the kind of destruction of some of the transport system and things like that.
Yes, actually the social explosion exploded because of increasing the prices of public transportation. That was like the last thing that made it all explode. And adding on what Yves was saying before, yes, the city, when we see it from above, when you see it from the sky Costanera, it looks very beautiful and nice. It looks nicer than it is on your feet. Mm?
Well, from my perspective, it looked quite nice or interesting, quite welcoming from street view as well. But I guess that was a sort of quite a limited perspective I had. But certainly, like I said before, you know, this multi-perspective is a very interesting experience of the city. Tere, was there anything that you wanted to say in relation to your presentation and also your invitation?
No, I guess that we're already running over time and maybe the guests are a bit tired so long in the screen. I'm honored and happy we could do this, and I hope people can visit my the RCA 2020 platform and my profile, because I'll be hosting some other events that they might be interested in attending.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Just to also say as well that it's really worth visiting the platform RCA 2020, and in particular the sculpture page. Sorry for the terrible self-promotion, but of course that's where you should always start. And like Tere, I'd like to thank all of our guests for your time in preparing these wonderful presentations for us, and also presenting. It's been such a unique sort of insight into the city, quite different to our other walkatives. So thank you very much.
I second that emotion. Thank you.
And just to finish, if that's okay, to say we will be back next Sunday at 6 o'clock with Walkative San Francisco. So I'm hoping that you'll all be there, and we'll see you again on Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Everyone.